Senators will be Senator Cardin and Senator Grassley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Werfel, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your willingness to serve our country in this critically important position. There's an easier way to make a living, so thank you for being willing to take on this challenge. I also want to acknowledge that I believe your strongest assets in the IRS are your workforce. I know many of the individuals who have really are very talented. They've gone through struggles with lack of resources, and I just urge you to invest in good people, continue to invest in good people, and do everything we can to increase the morale within the workforce. The work that they're doing is critically important to our country. I agree with you on your commitment to be a rule follower. We're the ones who pass the laws. Then they're interpreted. And yes, there is confusion in the way that people comply with our tax code. And historically, we've had a high compliance because it's been voluntary compliance. Everyone believes they're being treated fairly under our system, but that's no longer the case. And yes, when you look at following the rules, if you're a higher income taxpayer or a more complicated taxpayer, you have a lot of professional help for you to interpret the rules as most favorably as they can to your advantage. And when you don't have audits, you don't have an aggressive way to have a uniform interpretation of those rules, you run into the tax gaps that we have today. And so I agree with my colleagues that we want everyone to comply with the rules. It's not an income limit here on complying with the rules. We know that those of the higher incomes have found ways to bend those rules, and that has to end. And that's one of the reasons why in passing the Inflation Reduction Act, the resources were made available so we can close that gap and have a better confidence among the American taxpayers that they're being treated fairly. I just want to underscore that point. I know I had a chance to talk to you about that, and I'm convinced you understand that. Everyone needs to comply with the rules, but we have to make sure that everyone understands the rules through the audit process. So I just encourage you to do that. I want to raise an issue that's been raised by several of my colleagues, and that's small businesses. I chair the Small Business Committee. It's one of the major areas of concern that are raised by small businesses around this country, the challenges within our tax system. I think we in Congress have to take responsibility for that because we're the ones who developed the rules. But we need your help in how we can develop the rules and apply the rules to help small business owners who don't have the same capacity to deal with the tax code that larger companies have. So I'd just like to know your vision on how we can work together to make the tax code more understandable and fair for small businesses, which are the growth engines of our economy.
Absolutely, Senator Cardin. And, it was interesting in Senator Crapo's opening remarks, he made reference to the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And I got some very good advice prepping for this process to go and print out and read the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And I've made it a habit now of reading them every day and have confirmed I will read them every day. And one of the ones that jumps out at me is the right to understand and have clarity on what is expected of them. And I think there's more that the IRS can be doing to reach out, especially to taxpayers that don't have the means to hire accountants or law firms to navigate the tax system. It's a very complicated code. It can be daunting. And so I think there has to be an objective to meet taxpayers where they are. If they can't afford the resources to help them navigate, how can the IRS do more to answer their questions? Whether it's people in taxpayer assistance centers, whether it's better solutions online, whether it's working with intermediaries, tax preparer associations, local chambers of commerce, whatever it is to hold sessions that might be helpful. I'm ready to roll up sleeves and do what we can to help working families, small businesses meet their tax obligations in a much easier way than it has been to date.
And I would point out the Taxpayer First Act and the Bill of Rights are all been areas that we've weighed in on to do exactly that, to be a consumer-friendly agency. Phones have to be answered, advice has to be given that's accurate so people can respond in a timely way. And your response to my first question gives me great confidence that we can work together to achieve those objectives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.